Because a lot of the times when the Lord shows you something, he don't show it to everybody else. A husband's failure to lead well does not change God's design for marriage. I was fighting for a sense of control that was not mine to have. We have to focus on honoring his responsibility to the marriage. A healthy husband and wife both requires you to pursue Christ. Submission isn't just what you do, but it's how you do it. In this episode, we are unpacking the biblical definition of submission and what it means and what it does not mean. In a world that misdefines submission as weakness, loss of voice, and blind obedience, we are trying to bring back the true definition, which is rooted in truth and reverence. I'm Angie, and this is The Tender Wife. Every Sunday, we have faith-filled conversations on marriage, wife life, womanhood, and healing. Your journey is sacred to me, and we talk about the vulnerability behind it. First of all, my apologies for being absent last week. I kind of felt convicted when I said every Sunday, because it's not every Sunday, because last week I missed. And this is where my life lesson for the week comes into play, because the Lord, I felt like he told me, or something was placed in my heart. I'm very careful about saying the Lord told me something, but something was placed in my heart to have multiple episodes prepared in the event of an emergency. I get busy in the summertime, and in the fall, I'm super busy with church on the weekends. So, in the event that I get sick or whatever the case may be. And I feel like it was placed in my heart to make multiple episodes to have in the bank. And guess what? I did not do that. And so, because I didn't do it last week, I am a windows girly. I love to have the windows open. And Tuesday, I opened the windows, feeling myself, vibing, having a good old time, drinking my tea with the windows open. That next day, I woke up, the allergies, my throat was bothering me. I was nasally. It was just a lot of drama. And I just could not film. But it was a valuable lesson for me, because now I know at least to have some episodes in the bank so I can never feel like this again. And I felt bad, I'm trying to build the Tender Wife and make it something, that I can be proud of, and something that can bless somebody else, and just not being consistent with every Sunday. Like I said in my opening, it just really bothered me. So that's my life lesson. But we are back still talking about wife versus girlfriend. And before we begin, I really truly want to reiterate again, this is not about comparison. This is not about competition. It's about being clear on the role of a wife, and how we need to understand that a lot of the things that we're doing in the girlfriend role is not for a girlfriend to do. It's for a wife to do. And today we're talking about submission, to pick this back up. And I know submission is a topic that's talked about all the time. And it's like, when will this stop? And yada, yada, yada. I get it. But this is a topic that cannot be talked about enough, because there is a lot of misleading information out there, and information that people really truly don't understand. And hopefully we can break it down in a way that you can understand what submission is and what it truly means from on the biblical back end, and what it does not mean, and just how to govern yourself accordingly, and just, being a wise wife and the role of a husband, and just all of the things. I'm hoping that we can grasp it and get it and take hold, and just, have it truly understand from this particular this episode, and how I want to break down submission. So I hope you stick around. Like I said, I know it's talked about a lot, but it's really one of those topics that can be talked about, for us to understand, because as women, and I'm rambling now, but I need to get this thought out. As women, the journey can get very, very hard, and we can get very, very angry sometimes. And so we need to be brought back and taught, and talk about these things in submission and sacrifice, and from a biblical standpoint, so we know how to address our husband, so we know how to bring things to him. And so this is, like I said, this is a topic that it's not one of those topics that's talked about too much. So I don't want you guys to get that. But back to a wife being a wife versus a girlfriend. When we're talking about submission, we can back this up by scripture. In the Bible, it says, wives, the command, wives, submit to your husband. It does not say for the girlfriend to submit to her boyfriend. It's a directive to a wife. And so this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, as girlfriends, we should not be doing certain things, because it is not for us to do. And I feel like culture, or society, if you will, has decided, or turned submission into this negative term, this term of weakness, this term of losing your voice or making you feel minuscule. And it's not that. And we have to get rid of that. A lot of the times when people don't truly understand from a biblical standpoint, or when they are not Christians and they like understanding, they take terms that are biblical and just turn it into this mess. And this is where you get confusion from. And I'm really big on this website called GodQuestions.org. It's one of my favorite study places for just all your Christian needs, like Christian questions that you have. And as a preacher's wife, I'm very skeptical about what I eat and what I receive. And I feel like this is one of those websites that is really, really good that I would recommend to somebody. GodQuestions.org, and they define submission as yielding to the will or authority of another. And this got me to thinking about how submission is order. Submission is structure. You have this umbrella. God designed this umbrella for a reason. You have God, who is the head of the household, who is head of everybody. Then you have the husband, then you have the wife, then you have the children. And if you have a puppy or something, then you have the puppy. Like, it's a structure, and it's an umbrella, and it's for a purpose and it's for a reason. And God designed it this way for a particular reason. A lot of confusion happens because how God designed something to be, we do something else with it or create our own narratives and wonder why it's not working out for us, because that ain't how God told us to do it. And that's not how he told you to do it, but you did it anyway. Now you wonder why you're in shambles. This is why. But think about the chain of command. And I'm going back to when I was in corporate America, right? I was an employee and I had a supervisor. My supervisor had a manager, and he had a manager, and she had the big kahuna, top dog or whatever. And there was a reason for the chain of command, because it brought about a sense of ease and flow to the company. Obviously, if I was going through something with a certain employee, or if I felt, some type of way about whatever was going on at the job, I'm not going to go to my supervisor. No, I'm going to bring it to my supervisor, and we're going to follow a chain of command for order and for structure, for efficiency, like to streamline this process a little bit easier. In the same way, this is God designed for us to have our husband as the leader. Like, it's for structure. It's not about making you feel inferior. It's not about shrinking you. It's strictly about structure, and there has to be structure. God does things decent and in order, and this is what submission is. Submission is decent and in order. And in order for us to truly, really understand submission, and it's because it's such a tough topic to talk about, right? We have to check our heart posture. We have to get that heart right, and we have to be able to receive this information and receive what the Lord is trying to tell us when it comes to submission. And submission, when we're checking our heart posture, let's think on these things. As my husband always says, he does YouTube or videos sometimes, and he'll be like, think on these things. And I'm still in his saying, think on these things. Submission isn't just what you do, but it's how you do it. How are you showing up? Like, if I can do something, but if I'm doing it with an attitude, you're probably gonna be like, girl, I don't even want you over here. Like, please don't do it. My grandma often said, when older people are calling you and asking you to do something, don't huff and puff and roll your eyes, because if they could do it, most likely they would, and it kind of hurts their feelings. And it's the same concept here. Like, how you show up matters. How open and closed are you to learning and adjusting? Nobody is asking you to be the perfect wife. You are not going to be the perfect wife. You do not have the perfect husband. Nobody walking this earth is perfect. The only person that was perfect was Jesus. We're going to fall short. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to, the Bible tells us to be quick to listen and slow to speak. We're going to at times be slow to listen and quick to speak. Like, we're going to fall short. These things we do know. But what we need to understand is, are we teachable in those moments? Can we go back to the scripture? Can we be corrected in those moments and taught? And as long as you are striving to be a good wife, as long as you are striving to want to do better, as long as you are striving to grow and do what you know is right before the Lord and right before your husband and your children, or whatever the case may be, you are a teachable woman, and that goes a very, very long way. think about, are your intentions and motivations, are they pure? Are they real? Are they honest? Are you looking beyond how you can benefit? A lot of the times a woman stays in a relationship because the man is providing for her. He's providing something that she's receiving. So she's submitting out of what's beneficial for her and not what she is truly called and designed to do as a wife. So it's just about her. It's a selfish thing. And of course, she's going to struggle with submission because guess what? When the money runs dry, or if the money runs dry, that submission is going to go out the window. I always look at myself. I'm a stay-at-home wife and my husband is the sole provider. Of course, I have like my booktube channel. Of course, I'm trying to build the Tender Wife and all these different things, but he's the sole provider. But how I show up, my heart posture, how I show up is not defined or based on, should I say, what he brings to the table. It's based on how I want to present myself as a woman and as a wife and as somebody, as the Lord who can see everything that I'm doing. I want to make sure that I'm doing things right before him because he, you know, my desire is to get to heaven. Like, we're going to have to give an account for these things. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing things right before the Lord. And like I said, it's not about perfection. It's not about perfection at all. You're not going to be the perfect wife, but do you strive to want to be better than you were yesterday? That's the thing. What is your internal attitude like? What is your thoughts like? So as we journey through this, let's check our heart posture. Let's focus on the Bible. Let's focus on scripture. Let's focus on what God is trying to tell us. And hopefully he'll talk through me. And like I said, you can gain something from this episode. So we're just going to start and just dig into this. A lot of women, I won't say you, because I don't want y'all to think I'm coming for y'all. I'm not. A lot of women have a hard time with submission because they are not aligning themselves with a man of God. And a man of God who truly understands his role in this umbrella, right? Because a lot of men take advantage. They become abusive. They become, just very controlling. When you are when a man of God understands under the umbrella, he understands that you are supposed to love your wife as Christ loved the church. It's not about you. It's not about what this woman can do for you. It's not about selfish gain. It's about you loving her as Christ loved the church. And submission becomes a natural thing. Submission is a natural thing from a wife to a husband when he is loving you as Christ loved the church. When that man is loving you, like, think about this, like Christ, the perfect man, loved the church, submission is going to come easy to you. Submission is going to be natural for you because you're going to be like, whoa, like this is, like, that you're gonna feel it and you're gonna know. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, it says how the husband is to submit to Christ as Christ did God the Father, and the wife submit to her husband. So when he is aligned, right? When he is aligned, it's going to be easier for you to be aligned. It starts with how you pick your husband. And I feel like how we pick our husband truly is based on how rooted we are in Christ. Like, what is our relationship with Christ like? And I feel like when you have a relationship with Christ, you can pick a man of God, and you can pick a man of God who knows what it means to love like Christ loved the church and understand his role as the leader of the household. And again, like I said this in a previous episode, regardless as to what your husband is doing or what he's not doing, you are required to submit as to the Lord. You are submitting to your husband because you love the Lord, because this is a commandment. You have a higher authority than your husband. Your submission is to God before it's to anybody. Right? And we're going to talk about what that can look like when your husband is doing things that you don't necessarily agree with later on. And to wrap this particular segment up, when God is the head of your life, you understand that this umbrella is for protection. You choose to honor God through your marriage. And that's just the real on it. We have to start, especially single women, if you're watching this, you might be married and watching this, but if you're single and you tapped in, please understand this. Build your relationship yourself with Christ. Know the Lord for yourself so you can pick a man of God who knows the Lord and who knows and is on the same wavelength as you. Because when you get misaligned, that's where confusion lies. And so I want to talk about what submission is not. There's a fine line between submission and passiveness. Submission is not you backing down. It's not a lack of voice. It's not you being vocal. But I think when we're talking about being a wise wife, obviously you want to be a Proverbs 31 woman. You want to strive to be her. It's not about lack of voice, but when you're a wise wife, you know how to voice your concerns in a healthy and biblical way, right? It's not perfect, but it's healthy and it's in a biblical way. It's you coming to him at the right time, with the right tone, with the right words. Like, all of those things matter collectively to be able to voice yourself in a wise way. And sometimes wisdom, a lot of the times people think wisdom is weakness because it can look like you're backing down. But wisdom is maybe saying, hey, I don't have the right words right now, so I'm going to go collect my thoughts. I'm going to go organize my thoughts, which I'm really, really huge on. I'm going to organize these thoughts and I'm going to come back so I can talk intelligently to my husband and convey myself. Like, that's not backing down and just, piping down for a minute. That's not weakness. That's not being avoiding, because I just did a video on avoidance and protecting your peace. That's not avoidance. That's saying, hey, you know what? I know I'm finna go left field right now. So let me pause and pray for a second. It's not abuse. It's not disrespect. It's not infidelity. And this is where we have to learn setting boundaries within the marriage. No does mean no. The Bible draws a line at infidelity. You do not have to tolerate. You do not have to stay in a situation. You do not have to submit to abuse, verbal or physical. You do not have to submit to disrespect. You do not have to submit to infidelity. Those are not things that you are required to stay and submit to as a woman. Because guess what? If he's doing all these things, he's not loving you like Christ loved the church. He's loving you from a selfish standpoint. If he is doing these things, it's not agreeing with everything your husband says or does just because he's your husband. I am very big on, I don't have to agree with you. I can understand you. And I think I talked about this in the episode. Listen, I can understand you. I can understand your perspective. And if I know you well enough, I can understand why you have that perspective. But I don't have to agree with what standpoint you're coming from. I can get why you're saying what you're saying. I can understand what you're saying, but I don't have to agree with it. And so this is why it's important to study your husband. This is why it's important to learn him, because when you learn and study him, you can understand how to walk in discernment when it comes to him. Like knowing when, like I said, when to back down. There's a lot of times when my husband does things, and he may do things that I don't necessarily agree with. And the first thing that I do is if I feel like wholeheartedly this is the wrong thing to do, or this is going to turn into something that he doesn't necessarily see, I'm praying. I'm praying hard. Lord, please, guide him, protect him, help him make good decisions. I'm immediately praying. Because a lot of the times men are different from us. Like, they have this ego, they have a lot of pride, and especially old black men, you cannot tell old black men nothing. And so that's when you have to ask the Lord to, Lord, please intervene and help them, because this is beyond the scope of me now. Like, the Lord is his leader. I don't have authority over my husband. The Lord has authority over my husband. So when I feel like he is going down a deep end, or whatever the case may be, or he may not make this decision he's making is not, going to do well, I'm going to the Lord, because that's who has authority over him. It's not about losing your identity. It's not about losing your personality. I go on solo dates, but when I'm out there, I'm still submitting to my husband, like how I conduct myself, how I present myself to people. I'm not hanging all over men and stuff. Like, I'm still submitting to him, but still having those personal boundaries, still having my own identity, still having my own personality. I go out to eat by myself. I do certain things by myself, but I'm still submitting to him by showing respect to him, by giving him that respect. And that leads me into the role of a husband's leadership and how like our wisdom intertwines with that. Respecting your husband's role as a leader is significant, and it's very, 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 very hard to do when you get angry or when, like I said, he's not making the best decisions. And when you are looking at respecting your husband's role, it's not entertaining power struggles. Like, we have to rebuke fighting for control. And I will admit, your girl struggled with this, you know, when I first got married, because I did not understand the dynamics, the things that I'm talking about now. I had no idea of this when I was younger. I was 18 when I got married. I had no idea of this. And so looking back, I can see that I was fighting for a sense of control that was not mine to have. And so when you entertain power struggles, like I was saying earlier, we as women, we don't have, the Bible even says this, like, we don't have authority. A woman does not have authority over a man. I don't have authority over my husband. And honestly, I don't want authority over him. I want a leader. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that. I don't want to have authority over a man, because I just grew up very differently. And so if I feel like I can have authority over a man, like, I'm just going to be looking at you like you're a punk. Like, I don't want that. And some women want that because they want the control, but that's just not how it is. Like, the Bible clearly says in the Bible, and obviously I'll put the link here when I quote something. If you're watching on YouTube, you see this, that I always put the scripture when I quote it. If you're listening, you don't see that. But if you're watching on YouTube, like I said, you'll see it, and I always put it there. But it says, like, a woman does not have authority over a man. So we have to rebuke fighting for control. It also looks like supporting his vision. You can help build and strengthen him, like I said, through prayer and supplication, like asking the Lord to guide him and protect him through his decisions, like supporting his vision. And in all honesty, this is very, very hard to do. Like I said, when you have a lot of frustration. Nate and I experienced a lot of different things when we were married, from financial struggles to just pretty much financial struggles was our main ick. Like, it's very, very bad at one point. And it got to the point where frustration led, and we were not seeing eye to eye on a lot of things. And so it was hard, and this is just me being transparent, in supporting his vision. But at the time, I was not utilizing the weapon of prayer to lift him up. It was just more so leaning towards what I wanted from the situation, as opposed to how can I support him. Now, I wasn't always unsupportive of him. There were a lot of times, that I feel like I was more supportive than I wasn't, where I just, like I said, in those moments where it's just about prayer and supplication, as opposed to downing him or making him feel like this is not going to work. Like, respecting your husband's role as a leader is truly supporting his vision, like seeing where he's going. And it's okay to ask questions. That doesn't mean you're not I can't even get the word out. That does not mean that you are not a submissive wife when you are asking questions for understanding. We don't just, we're humans. We don't just blind support just because somebody tells us to do. Like in Coming of America, when it said, bark like a dog, and she barked. Like, that's not real life. So we want to ask questions, and it's okay to ask questions to be able to support him better. And supporting him better is, hey babe, well, how can I help you do this? Or what can I do to take the load off you? Guys, I don't know why I'm stuttering so bad today. What is going on? I think I'm talking at a fast pace because submission is one of my favorite topics to talk about in marriage. And it's just, I get super excited sometimes, but I don't know. Maybe I need to check to see if I have like speech problems or something, because I feel like I've been stuttering a lot lately. But anyway, just asking these questions so that you can get understanding and better support him and see where you can be of assistance at instead of pulling him down. Sometimes it's going to take a while to catch on to his vision, because a lot of the times when the Lord shows you something, he don't show it to everybody else. That's why you can't tell everybody everything. The Lord can show you something as a woman that he did not show your husband, and you may be directed to tell him. The Lord may show him something as a leader of the household, and you have to trust that the Lord showed him this, and that he is wise enough to know the difference between what the Lord is telling him and then what his flesh is telling him. That could be a difficult thing, right? But we have to trust that. And this is, like I keep saying, we have to pray and pray and pray again. Like, we cease. Never stop praying. That's biblical. Never stop praying. We have to do that. And so supporting your husband, supporting his vision is such just a large topic that I could really just go on a whole episode by itself, but we're going to move on. It's also honoring his responsibility and not necessarily focusing on authority. Leadership in marriage is heavy. And I often say men have a lot on their plates. Like, leading a family, you think about that. Cause here's the thing. Like I just said, we're not going to agree with everything that this man says and does. And so somehow he has to convince us that God told him to do this. But we're sitting over here angry, like, no, this is not going to work out because we don't have no understanding, because God did not reveal it to us. So leadership is heavy. So we can't focus on his authority, like he's the leader, he gets the last say. We have to focus on honoring his responsibility to the marriage, respecting his responsibility to the marriage. Everything that he's going through and here's the thing, guys, this is vice versa too. He should be doing the same things for us too, right? It goes hand in hand, so it can, work out for the greater good in the end. I'm not just saying this is something that we have to do, but I feel like it's the same thing for him too. Like, I am a stay-at-home wife. I cook, clean, and I do all the things. Like, my husband does not pick up a broom and he does not sweep nothing. So I would like to think at some points, he could understand, like, hey, she gets tired too. Just like he gets tired on the job, I get tired too. Like, I want a break too. I don't want to cook every day too. Like, I'm hoping he's understanding of that. And we have to understand that in his role as a leader, it could get very, very heavy. So let's not look at it as him being this in an authoritative role, but this is his responsibility as a man of God. Also, when it comes to a husband's role, it's about communicating with grace and timing. The Proverbs 31 woman was such a beautiful woman, and she moved with so much grace and so much kindness, and she communicated. Well, I don't really know how she communicated, but obviously we broke this down last week when we talked about, or 2 weeks ago when we talked about how she does him good all the days of her life, and she brings him good. And I'm pretty sure in that moment when she's bringing him good, she's being his peace. And part of being your husband's peace is communicating in a way that he can receive it. And again, this is why knowing who you married, studying this person is important, because we as women, I feel like men, it's a known fact that they mature later than us. So men can be very naive. They can be very oblivious to certain things. And so we have to be able to communicate on their level. And that's going to be different for each husband. Like, how you communicate to your husband is going to be different how I communicate to mine. It's not a one size fits all thing, but it's about studying who you're with. That was the best advice my grandmother ever gave me when it came to relationships. Study those you love. And that's not just for a romantic relationship with your husband. That's platonic relationships too. That's relationships with your children. That's relationships with your siblings. That's relationship with your parents. Like, study those you love. We're talking about, your husband here. Communicating with grace, like being able to communicate from his level. I come from a family where they are very aggressive. So I have to communicate with them in a very aggressive way. Otherwise, you'll just get ran over and you'll just get walked on. So some husbands, you know, you gotta be tough, but sometimes you have to back down as a wife and meet them where they're at. It's not always about how you communicate and how you want to convey things, but it's about how are they going to receive it. It's also about, like I said, trusting his leadership even when you would do it differently. You know, his role is to lead, guide, and protect. So yeah, you may do things differently, but like I was saying earlier, God may have told him to do it a specific way. And this is where understanding has to come in. This is where patience comes in. This is where what we talked about 2 weeks ago, sacrifice comes in. We have to trust his leadership. It's also about being a helper and not his opponent. Listen, we are a helpmeet. That's it. We were designed to be a helpmeet. That's why Eve was made, to be a helpmeet. That's what we are as women, to be a helpmeet to the man. So that's like should be our first question when we see our husband struggling or when we see our husbands going through something. It's like, babe, how can I help you today? How can I take the weight off of you today? What can I do that's going to make you better in this situation? Or make your life overall easy. When you think about marriage, this is not your opponent. You are on the same team. This is not the Pistons versus the Pacers. This is not the Celtics versus the Knicks. Like you were on the same team. Boston. Me and my husband, he's a Lakers fan. I'm a Boston Celtics fan. We are different on that, but we're on the same team when it comes to this marriage and us being a unit. You are not your husband's opponent. You guys are a team and you are to work together. We hear all the time like teamwork makes the dream work and all that stuff. Like that sounds good and everything, but when you are constantly being contentious, when you are constantly going against him, that is not team, that's opponent, and that's division. And a wise wife knows when she is being an opponent and what an opponent looks like. If you are constantly putting his ideas down, you're being an opponent. If you are constantly telling him what he can't do, you're being an opponent. If you constantly have something negative to say and being argumentative, you are being an opponent to him. And an opponent in marriage is just not going to stand. It's just not going to stand. So I want to wrap a few things up, for this episode as we end. I wanted to share a few little tidbits that I wanted to remind you guys of today. And it's submission in scripture is not a command for a husband to dominate you. It is a call for a wife to willingly honor her husband within God's design for marriage. So a husband is also called to sacrificially love his wife. That means to protect her. That means to provide for her. That means to love her as Christ loved the church. It's not for selfish gain. So keep that in mind as you're going through and you're learning about submission and you're journeying through your marriage. So here's the thing. I know a lot of women that desire to submit, but they do not trust their husband's leadership. They don't trust him making good decisions. They don't trust that he is going to show up and do what he's supposed to do. And I hear women like that. You want to submit, but it's hard to relinquish that control. And here's what I have to say to this. A husband's failure to lead well does not change God's design for marriage. It does not change his command for the wives to submit. And this is where you do have to kneel and pray, because I understand how this will affect how the marriage is lived out. Like, we're human. We see something going, like if I see somebody jumping in front of a bus, or like a kid jumping in front of a bus, just because it's not my kid doesn't mean I'm not going to try to grab the kid out the way. So it's the same concept. Like when you see your husband going down a path, you're upset with him. It's just hard to just relinquish that control and just, I hope he figures it out. Like that's very, very hard to do. But we have to again, we don't have authority over the man, but we have to remember to do our part as women. That's all we can do. And pray. And ask her, like, really ask yourself, are you praying over? I had to ask myself this the other day. I was like, am I praying hard enough for my husband's leadership? Like, I pray for his safety out on the road. I pray for him to do well in life. I pray for all these different things, but am I praying really hard enough for his leadership and that he leads and guides us as a family well? Like, I really had to ask myself this. And you have to ask yourself that. Like, pray, really, really pray for him. Pray that God guides him. Pray that God gives him the right decision and that he obeys God. Another thing that I wanted to touch on before we wrap this up is that submission is never obedience to sin. If your husband asks you to do something that disobeys God or disobeys God's word, your first allegiance is to God. And I feel like that's where he draws the line. And I feel like any man of God that's living under the umbrella the correct way, he wouldn't be asking you to do nothing of sin anyway. But it happens. It really does happen. Your first allegiance is to God at the end of the day. Here's the thing, guys. A healthy marriage, a healthy husband and wife both requires you to pursue Christ. So if you're struggling with submission, if you're struggling in marriage, ask yourself, are you both pursuing Christ? Are you praying together? Are you going to church together? Are you both pursuing Christ together? And this is where being equally yoked is extremely, extremely important. You have to be equally yoked in order to be able to execute submission in a way that God designed for submission to be executed as a wife. So, like my husband says, think on these things, y'all. Think on these things. So today's episode, we talked about what submission is not. We talked about what submission is. And we talked about just the role of a husband in his leadership and just how we're supposed to pray for him and how we're supposed to honor God, you know, how we can honor God through our marriage. And listen, ladies, I know sometimes it can be hard. I know marriage get hard. Sometimes you want to bop that man over his head. I get it. But remember what I keep saying in all these episodes. We are required to live a certain way, and we can only answer for ourselves when we get to the beautiful gates. We ain't gonna be answering for him or nobody else. We gonna answer for us. So let's do the right thing and let's strive to be Proverbs 31 women all day, every day, okay? All right, guys, I will see you guys all in the next episode. We're probably going to be talking about healing from church hurt, which is a topic that is really, really near and dear to me. I feel like all these topics I talk about are really near and dear to me, but this one goes deep, y'all. Healing from church hurt. I hope you guys stick around, subscribe to the channel, share this with a friend of yours. I will see you guys all in the next one. Stay anchored, stay becoming.